He's actually with us from South Africa. Henry, we are seeing you. We also have the special advisor to the current Lagos State Governor, who is special advisor on diaspora, is also with us online. And also physically present, we have the GMD of Real Pharmaceuticals. A round of applause for all these our special guests. The GMD for Real Pharmaceuticals, who happens to be a pastor too. He's also a pharmacist. These are some of the special guests we have in our midst. Now, for those who came late, we actually have had several lovely sessions. We had Joy Shitu. Joy Shitu came earlier. She was the first speaker. Joy Shitu is the CEO of JB Furnitures, and Joy Shitu spoke on several things. And she has actually picked one of the ladies here. Who is the lady? Okay, for a training worth 250,000 naira. Joy Shitu is taking care of it. A round of applause for that. We also have Dr. Ajayi. Dr. Ajayi is the CEO of Executive Group, and also he's one of the board members for Lagos State Security Trust Fund in Lagos, reporting directly to the governor. He left also, and Dr. Ajayi dropped 500,000 naira. And the 500,000 naira is for 5 entrepreneurs amongst us. A round of applause for that. And also, we have Mr. Tolulokwe Idris, who is the CEO of E360 Africa. He just mentioned to me that if you are here physically, or for those online too, they can actually connect to this. And you have any software-related background, computer skills, computer science, that you have programming interest, please signify. He has actually promised that anybody that falls into this category will be given 6 months internship training program free with E360 Africa. A round of applause for this. So for those online, if you fall into this category, software programming, computer programming, anything related to IT, kindly signify so that you could be part of this awesome program. Then also, I have one of the members for Get Jobs, who is actually one of the financiers. He just sent me a text message now. If you are a civil engineer, do we have engineers here? Okay, anybody that studies civil engineer here? Okay, for those online too, if you are actually a civil engineering graduate, there are opportunities. Just signify online for those that are not here physically. Signify online for civil engineers. We have opportunities also. Then media, I don't know, maybe our next speaker is ready.
Yeah, Mr. Henry is online.
Is the special advisor to the governor online?
It's not yet.
He actually chatted me just now that he's joining.
He hasn't joined yet.
Just a minute. Okay. Whilst we are waiting for the special advisor to the governor, we have Henry. Henry Ajayi is, like I said earlier, is the regional HR head for, I don't want to mention the name of the organization, but he's currently in South Africa, and the organization is spread across 185 countries in the world. Henry Ajayi's career has spanned over the banking sector, the FMCG sector, and currently where he is. Henry Ajayi, You're welcome. A round of applause for Henry Ajayi. Media, can we project him?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, please let me know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so I think those on the call can hear me. I'm just waiting for those in the room.
Media.
Hello? Yes, I can hear you. There's a lot of echo. Hello? Oh, there's someone in the hall who is not on mute. Okay. Is this better? Can everyone hear me? Sorry, I need some feedback if people can hear me in the hall.
Hear you.
Oh, they can hear me. Everyone can hear me. Okay, okay. All right. Good afternoon to everyone. It's exactly 12 o'clock. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Henry Ajayi. As I've been introduced, I work in HR. I've been in HR for about 15 years now. And I worked across banking, FMCG, and I currently work as head of HR for an international financial institution based in Abuja, but across 180 countries. My current duties evolves around managing the day-to-day HR activities for staff in Nigeria and East Africa, which is Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, and South Sudan. So having said that, I just want to say a big thank you to the leadership of the church and also to the founder of Get Job. This is a rare opportunity and I do not take it for granted. So I'd like to really appreciate everyone and I look forward to having a wonderful conversation. So I've been asked to speak on the art of resume or CV. We'll come to that, the art of it. And essentially it's about show me your CV and I'll tell you who you are. We've heard a lot about entrepreneurship. We've heard a lot about, attitude. We've heard a lot about how to manage yourself in the place of work and also in your chosen field. Now, I would like to bring you into how to present yourself. One of the speakers rightly said, that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Some of us will continue to be in paid employment. But as you are in paid employment, you need to find a way to navigate from one organization to the other. How do you stand apart from others? So I'd like to go into my slide by starting with the second slide, which is a quote. And the first thing that I want to let you know is that a good resume or CV does not guarantee you a job. Rather, it gives you a foot at the door. So the fact that you have a fantastic CV does not guarantee that you're going to get a job. What a good CV will do is to give you the opportunity to be interviewed. You yourself has a role to play when it comes to interview. It's another topic for another day, but we'll stick to resume and CV for today. So again, do not make the mistake that all you need to do is just to have a good resume and everything will fall in place. No. The first thing you need to understand is a good resume Okay, I think people can't hear me in the hall. Okay, I hear it's back now. So I probably have cut off, so I'll just recant what I've said earlier. I was just talking about a good resume or CV. What it does is it gives you a foot at the door. And once that door is open, that door is the interview. So when you get into the interview, it's up to you to impress the team. But the first thing you must understand is that your CV does not necessarily guarantee you a job. Now, going to the next slide, I was going to talk about, there's a lot of misconception with regards to, should we use the word resume or should we use the word CV? What is the best way to use? Now, I just want to talk about that slightly. Now, what is the difference between a resume and a CV? Now, a resume is typically a 1-page to 2-page document. As you can see on the slide, I don't know if it's very clear now, but I'll try and read it out to you. A resume, it's a 1 to 2-page document. It's just a highlight. You know, it talks about yourself, talks about your job, talk about your achievements, just talk about you as a person. A CV, on the other hand, the word curriculum vitae is not English. It actually means, it means a course of life. It means a course of life. It's about what you've achieved in the course of your life. So it's usually longer. And typically you find out that people use a CV for research and academic purposes, where you'll have to cite a lot of publications, you have to cite a lot of books and all of that. So it's usually longer. So when I come across CVs for people in academics, they usually have like 7 to 8 pages where they'll have to cite everything. But a resume is usually shorter, and most times people in paid employment use a resume, which is usually shorter. But for the sake of this, discussion, I will use both interchangeably, but we don't understand it's the same thing we're talking about. What puts you forward? What represents you professionally? Now, going into the next slide, and before I talk about this next slide, I want to tell a brief story of an experience I have. Please, could you move to the next slide? A brief experience I had about a year ago when we were recruiting for a position in our office. We put out an advert for about 2 weeks. And in that advert, there was an instruction. The instruction was that in addition to submitting your application, please submit a 1-page document, covering the following area. There were 5 questions, covering the following area, 5 questions that people were supposed to include in that application. Out of 9,000 applications that we got, only 20 people read the instructions and inserted that 1-page document. So what this tells you is that it's not enough to have a good CV. Sometimes it's important to read the advertisement. And it was just basic instruction. It was highlighted. It was highlighted. It was colored, bolded, so people do not miss it. But the interesting part is that only 20 people out of 9,000 applicants saw that and followed the instructions. So basically, in my years of going through CV, I'm sure in the last probably 10 years, I must have gone through over 5,000 CVs. And I've come to group them in 5 categories, which is what you have on your screen right now. I've come to group them in 5 categories. The first category of people are those that I call their CVs are the CVs that rivals that of Joseph with a coat of many colors. The CVs comes in different fonts. It comes in different shapes, comes in different colors. There's always, what we call the color riot. There's red here, the font is red, the background is green, there's a large black line across. It is awful to look at. It's terrible, especially when someone wants to print your CV in black and white. It's really, really not friendly to the eyes when they print it out. So that's the first category of people. Remember, we're talking about the heart of CV writing. Show me your CV, I'll tell you who you are. So basically, the first set of people I talked about are those that I call the coat of many colors. Different colors, different font, different shape, different sizes. Very, very unpleasant to the eyes. The second category of people that have come across their CVs, I call them the third person. Now, this individual, when you look at the CV, the first thing it talks about himself, him or herself, in the third person. They start by saying, Henry Ajayi is a fantastic professional who in his over 15 years of experience has been managing XYZ. And you as a reviewer, you're wondering, is this person talking about someone else or they're talking about themselves? It's usually very confusing because they start with the introduction, and we'll go into how people go through CVs later. The moment that comes up, it tells the reviewer who this is, and they put you in a box. The third category of profile that I've come across is those that I call full disclosure. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm sure a lot of you in the room can actually relate to some of these things that I'm saying. So the third category is people I call the full disclosure kind of person. They tell you everything about themselves. They start their CVs talking about their name, their state of origin, their religion, their local government, their national identity. They list everything that is not necessary about themselves. Absolutely not necessary. And that alone can give the reviewer lack of confidence that you can actually lay out secrets, because you don't know where your CV will land. You don't know where your resume will land. And you list absolutely everything on your CV. There's nothing they can ask for. They can't even reach out to you to ask. They put gender, they put actually everything. So I call those people the full disclosure. The next set of people that have come across their CV is what the people I call look at me now. These individuals will place a large photo of themselves on their CVs. And it's very, very distracting. I mean, why would you put your picture on your CV when it's not a requirement? Remember, most people have just one CV. So maybe for a particular job, it was requested that you include a passport photograph of yourself, and they leave it and they put it for every kind of job. The last set of people that have come across their CVs are those that I call I just got back, the IJGB. Now, these people are those that probably went to school abroad, they did a master's abroad, and sometimes they have 3 to 4 pages. And they usually experience from probably, some grocery stores or the post office. And some of these jobs can actually be interwoven. So you can have, 3 jobs concurrently. Now, I don't have anything against such individuals, but when you list that on your CV, and sometimes those jobs are not related to what you're applying to. So you can put that you're a cashier at Tesco, you can put that you're an attendant at a BP gas station, you can put also that you are attendant at the post office, and you're applying for a bank operations job. So you can see it doesn't really relate to what you, so sometimes it's not everything you put on your CV. So in summary, these are just my views, and these are the things I've come across reviewing thousands and thousands of CVs over the years, and it's always consistent, always consistent. I put them in all these categories. Now, moving to the next slide, I just want to walk you through what are the things that shouldn't even be on your CV at all. And I'll give explanation why you shouldn't have those things on your CV. Remember, we're talking about the art of CV writing. CV writing is an art. Please, could you go to the next slide? Okay. Now, what to exclude? Number one, please. A lot of you understand the situation of things in the country. And I know, yes, you are believers. I know evil, no harm will come to us. But please, do not put your full address on your CV. So I see people putting their complete. So the example I use about the full disclosure kind of thing. So you can imagine someone, he has virtually everything about themselves, their personal details, including their full address. There's a security issue for that. What I usually recommend people should do is you put your location. For example, if your address is in Ikeja, your address should be Ikeja, Lagos. If it's on the island, if it's Lekki, you put Lekki, Lagos. At that point of application, an employer does not need your address. They might need to know where you reside, but they don't need to have your address. When they hire you, they will ask for your address, and it goes into a confidential process. That's the first thing. The second thing is your full personal details, which is what I alluded to when I talked about the full disclosure profile. People do everything. They put their local government, they put their home address, their hometown address, their state of origin, their religion, their gender. It's absolutely unnecessary, except the job says specifically, please include, and I know for those applying to federal government jobs, they usually will request for some of those details. So if you're applying for that particular job, customize your CV to reflect those information for that job, not for every other job. You do not need to include everything. Some people even put their marital status and all of that. Their citizenship, they put it there. It's not necessary. The next one is, because I believe I'm speaking to people that have first degrees and above. So if you're putting together your profile on your CV, please take out your primary and secondary school information. You don't need it. Except, you can put it as an exception to that, except if during your primary school, you were the head boy or head girl. In secondary school, you're also the head boy or head girl. And during that period, you invented something that had never been invented before. So then, yes, you can include it. But if you did not do anything remarkably different, please, there's no need to include your nursery, your primary and secondary. Some people also put their nursery, by the way, part of what I've seen. The next one is referees contact. Now, a lot of us, when we get to, when you've advanced in your career, some people will come to you and say, hey, can I use you as a reference? I'm like, sure, you can use me as a reference. But I don't want you to put my contact details and email in your CV that I don't know where it's going to go. Most organizations will request for a reference after you've gone through the interview and you're one of the candidates to be considered. Then they can decide the quality of your reference check will determine the next step. In that case, they will get in touch with you and say, can you provide your referees? Then you provide. Please, do not put people's contact. People that have decided to be your referees, do not put their contact on your CV, please. Remember when I talked about the full address? It's very similar. I see people, they want to name drop by putting some, honorable members, some senators and all of that. But you're not just putting them at risk, you're also putting yourself at risk. So please, don't even say references to be supplied. Don't even say that. There's no need to include it. When you are hired or when you're about to be hired, you'll be requested to provide those details. The last one is, I find this very weird. On your CV, people have 2, 3 numbers and 2 email addresses. Please have a phone number specific. Yeah, I know people myself, because of network and all of that, but the old networks are the same. But just put one number. Let people, a number that people can reach you anytime on the day. It's not switched off. Put that phone number. Email address, just one email address. And please, whatever email address you have when you were in school that used to be, those fancy names, please, you can, email addresses are actually quite free. You can create a new professional looking email address these days. Your first name, your first name dot last name at Gmail, whatever it is. You can find something professional that you can use. So basically, these are the things I would recommend that you exclude from your CV. Now, going to the next slide, I would like to talk about, the structure of your CV. How should it be structured? What are the things you should look out for when you are putting your CV together? The first thing is, please don't present a CV with grammatical errors. This can look simple, but it's a huge turnoff when people are reviewing CVs. The moment you pick up a CV and you can point out the grammatical errors there, especially someone that's applying for, a job that requires attention to details, and then your own CV that you prepared yourself, you can't even spot out the errors that are there. So please watch out for grammatical errors. And one of the ways to do that is to use spell check. Use spell check. If it's Word that you're using, spell check. Sometimes it can also help you with the grammar correction. Then the most effective way to watch out for this is to get someone to look at your CV for you. Let someone look at your CV for you and help you point out the errors that may be there. So that's one. Number 2, use a professional, structured approach. Let everything be sequential. Let it be chronological. If you're using bullet points, if you're using bullet points, use bullet points. Don't use bullet points, then change to alphabet, then back to bullet point. No, let it be consistent. The font, the size, Let it be consistent across board. Don't forget to justify. So when you are formatting your CV, justify it. And usually I recommend that when you put your CV together, use Word to prepare it, then convert it to PDF. That way it's going to help in terms of the structure. The third is be mindful how you start your CV. Be very, very mindful. Like I said, put it in a chronological order. So basically, there are two ways that CVs are reviewed. There are two ways that CVs are reviewed. The first one is you just take a CV. You take a CV. You scan through the CV. Remember when I started the story I told, I had to, myself and a colleague, we had to review 9,000 applications, 9,000 applications. Because we had to give everyone a fair chance. We had to review one by one. So you can imagine how we'll review. You just look at it. It's just one glance. You look at it one glance. If it doesn't appeal to you, you put it aside. So the first step is to just do a quick glance through. Once you do a quick glance through and it makes sense, then you put it, then it takes you to the second stage. The second stage is either you discard it or you sit down and you continue to look at it. So those are the two ways that we do review CVs. So I've just given you an insight now. The last point in terms of structure is customize your resume to each roles. Now, I know this might be difficult, especially when you are just coming out as a graduate or with not much experience. It might be difficult, but the truth is you can group jobs that you want to do. Then you have CVs for those specific kind of jobs. So a customer service kind of role, what you put in that will be different from a graduate trainee in banking, for example. So customize your CV. Take time. I've seen people, and it's very annoying, I've seen people forward their CVs for an application, and you can see the trail of that CV. They had actually sent it to a different job, and they just forwarded it to you and say FYI, FYA, please find attached. That actually tells me that you are not really serious about the job. Probably someone told you to apply. You just kind of like, hey, that's my CV. Do whatever you like with it. So please take time to review the job description, tailor, especially if it's a company, an industry that you are passionate about. Take time to reflect whatever the job advert says in your CV. That would tell the reviewer that you actually went through this, you took your time and you went through this. Now, I'd like to go to the last slide I have, which is a sample of CV that I recommend for people and how you should structure your CV. Please, if you could go to the last slide, the next slide, sorry, the next slide, yes. So this is what I typically recommend as a structure. Everyone can decide what they want, but this is just how I recommend people should structure their CVs. You start with your first name and you put your surname at the other extreme. I see people starting with their surname and their last name, and it's really difficult because you don't know, especially when they come into interviews. You call them by their surname, you call them by their first name, you ask them, so it's a bit confusing. So just be consistent. Your surname at the end, your first name, if you have middle name, you put it there, and your last name there. That's one. Two, you see the way I put this: location, phone number, email address, LinkedIn profile. Some people like to put their LinkedIn profile, which is fine, but please don't put a scanty LinkedIn profile link. If you put your LinkedIn profile, I will click on it and say, okay, Who is this person? I'd like to see what they project professionally. So if you know there's nothing interesting to see in your LinkedIn profile, please do not put it there. Because this is, like I said, this is just a way to structure. Then you go into professional summary, and I'll talk about this. You talk about your skills, your work history, education. If you have awards or recognition, if you have certification or training, you put it there. As you can see, there is no place here for referees. There is no need to say references will be supplied upon request. No. When they need it, they will ask you. Just have it handy and you provide it. Now, I just want to talk, because I know there are diverse people in the room, and I just want to talk about how your CV should be structured depending on your years of experience. Now, for entry level, please include your work experiences from NYC, industrial attachment, and any other thing. Reflect leadership position in schools. Remember when I talked about if you were head boy in nursery or primary, head boy or head girl, this is the best time to put it in, to reflect your leadership. You put it there. And sometimes if you don't have adequate experience, you can actually, reflect more with your education. Now, I see people put in their class of degree. If you didn't make a first class, if you're not the top 5% of your class, sorry, we're getting a lot of, someone please mute. Okay. So if you didn't make a first class, if you didn't graduate, top 5% of your class, please do not put in your class of degree. I see people put second class lower. Why? People put second class upper. Good, but it makes sense. If you had a first class, a distinction, top 5% of your class, you put it there. But if not, do not put it. Do not put it. If the job says it only requires people with second class upper, then you can include it because the job said so. That's when you are customizing your CV to a particular role. But if you are doing your CV generally, please do not include it there. For experience level, I usually tell people, emphasize on your achievement. Quantify those achievements in numbers, in figures, in savings, whatever it is. Quantify it and put it there. Highlight those things. And if you've had 2-3 jobs, do not just copy your job description from your job and just dump it. Highlight those job descriptions in past tense. I facilitated the training of 30 new employees. I delivered savings of XYZ. Those are the kind of things you put it in past tense to show that this is what you've done in that previous role. And then you have selected achievement beneath it, and then you highlight those things. On professional objective, it's important to identify the difference between a professional objective and summary. Objective is about what I want. Please don't confuse it for each other. When people talk about I'm looking for a role that will further enhance my XYZ, you're talking about the objective. Your summary, typically it's about you as an individual, what you're bringing to this role. I am an HR leader with 15 years experience across XYZ industries. I've done this, I've done that, I'm bringing this, I'm bringing that. That's your summary. That is your summary. It's different from the objectives. So I usually will recommend for entry level, use objectives. For experience level, use summary. Then the last point I'll make on this slide is about the applicant tracking system. A lot of you might not have heard of it, but if you work in a lot of international organizations, you understand what the role of ATS is in recruitment. So ATS is typically like a software that would track a lot of CVs and look for specific roles. Remember when I talked about customizing your CV to a position? So the ATS, what the ATS does is to look for CVs that has certain words that they were looking for, and it shortlists them based on that. So when I was talking about the recruitment, the 9,000 applicants that we got for the position a year ago, we used some form of ATS. One of them is just to click and look for, type one pager. How many CVs have one pager? So people use that as a way to weed off a lot of applicants. So this is rampant in the US. ATS is used very much in the US. So please customize your CV to the position. I know it could be painful, but trust me, at the end, it's actually quite beneficial. So I'm cautious of time. I think I'm already 5 minutes over my time. And I would like to pause here and